And there is one more subject that I would like to mention in this of my political introduction, and that would be the character and temple of Alexander that still exists to present days as one of the most favorite and most famous historic temples of the times. It is also in question very tragic history, a very tragic life that ended too soon. Started too early and ended too soon. But certainly would highlight the circumstances of the region in given time that has not stopped to the present time to become defining that region, but also profoundly the antagonism in that region that someone now is trying to reduce, yet not changing absolutely anything that creates that antagonism, which would translate into accepting a situation when one side would prevail and the other would be just walked over. And that is why this is important subject of today. If we return also to protocol Mecca of Muslim civilization, one will notice that Daria was not Otto Daria was killed at that point of time. The kingdom the kingdom remained on the territories, and with Alexander dead, clearly prevailed on the other side. That was domestic to the territory of the time, to the Babylon, and that would be in prevalence would have been Shia of Babylon. We have to see that here Alexander as a temple is losing. Temple of Alexander here is a losing game, and for 2 millenniums continue to be losing game across the entire region. Alexander has become synonym for losing positions, and you go in Macedonia, and Macedonia end up in Hollywood. So we have not ended up nothing. We have not accomplished nothing here today, and I would not awaken Olympia if it was not because of Alexander. I have not made today Olympia to be that much grand and that much big again. To reach Cleopatra there, to reach the goddess of absolute justice, for nothing. I have done all of that for one single reason: to save Alexander and to make him eternal, as any mother would do. So this is regarding the temple. And of course it would be regarding the entire political setting. But before you get afraid from him again and start crying and walking your bank accounts in crying mode, I would like to remind you that we talk about character that would have been associated with sunshine and with positivism. Character that married Roxanne and what he got out of it. What he got out of that marriage. Well, he got out of that marriage someone today in ambition to declare Roxanne the queen. Maybe someone maybe also I'm going to find another problem is that all of that is strongly controlled by Celtic societies. And the main problem here is that Celtic societies want to declare Alexander theirs and want in such way to collect entire ancient history as they have been doing it in all of this time. So here the real winner was not Middle East, that was just used for a purpose as continued to be used for that purpose. But the real user is, of course, the big America, what today become the biggest and most powerful country in the world. And that country became the biggest and most powerful because in all of this time was highly exploiting and harshly exploiting the ancient plateau. Especially of ancient Macedonia, yes, and ancient Greece and the surrounding ancient territories. Yes, that is the secret of America, and that is who built America. Who built America are Mediterranean ancient kingdoms. Let's not make mistake about it. Now, what we have to notice here is that you find Alexander in position of Donald Trump, and no one talks about Alexander on any other level, but where is Donald Trump? Which means they continue to play that role, continue to play Alexander is of Ireland and Alexander is on the fatherland. And everything that Alexander acquired is theirs. That is the logic they continue to play on. And if at certain times it doesn't look exactly like that, they would like to reinstate it exactly like that. And that is why that is not going to make any sense. They're willing now to reincarnate entire Germany again for what they're killing tons of Palestinians. So they can reincarnate again the German army, to use against German army, to give them on the plate again ancient kingdom. And they declare their crowning king, Donald Trump. And that is what's wrong about the story of Alexander, because that is not the real story of Alexander. That is not the real story of Alexander. That is story where Alexander and Temple of Alexander and concept of Alexander become used by extreme West society for promotion of the lowest of the levels of working class movements and tribunal societies, awakening today all of the criminals, all of the mafias, that is the prime societies, which translates into mafias, all of the international gang cartels that they have been calling just in last century international proletariats or internationala. And there was also anthem in French language going, devoted to international working class movement, empowered and glorified. And I would never associate Alexander to the lowest of the levels of anything. But when you are in question and when you come on stage, that is to what it all translates. And that is how it became Alexander lost in translation somewhere in Republican America. And I'm going to say again, you do not have right to play that temple. You do not have right to play Alexander because Alexander is not yours. And you would never know how to play Alexander because Alexander is not you. I'm going to invite you to notice that in all of on the location of real Alexander, that is Macedonia, such characters are being walked over, crossed over, diminished. Looking for the one that can be the most suitable to play their game. So to the point where they are going to make him disposable. Nothing here is about Alexander, but about what someone expects Alexander to deliver to them. Some voices, some birds are also telling me that Americans are using um, are, following every single word that is going to be spelled out between me and a so-called husband, to use it as their base for their promotion. Have we already accepted that Americans, harshly, hardly educated Americans, speaking as a overall, what is constituency to Donald Trump especially? Can we as a planet accept international forces to be used without question asked on what level and in what protocol? I understand that we have managed to, also today, after what I just talked about, it can hardly be said we or together or civilization, but rather predatory. I'm going to conclude it would be absolutely inappropriate to use further on reference to civilization or what's happening on this planet. I'm rather from now on call it predatory. Um, we would be we have been agreeing silently as all of the rest of the nations to some kind of leading position of America for two major reasons, because America was created by different cultures, as it is a relatively new continent. So it was in all of the times created some kind of international sentiment there, and it was possible to bring that fame of America in all other territories, because there would have been plenty of people that would have been citizens of America, and it was possible to create this kind of much more long-lasting international relationships and present on international territories. However, the time has arrived when we have to think about that and such America, which became epitome of the entire planet in small, become somehow planetary interface. It is time that we start thinking in real terms about the real interface of that land and real politicking that should be behind that flag. First of all, the flag appears to me rather not that much usable at all, because open ground indicates a reference to prison and to nothing else but a prison. And stars, which is to me reference to light or reference to intelligence, brought in a corner, which means rather used and misused. We cannot use such flag to top up the entire planet. First of all, it would be unacceptable. So the killing momentum number one here is the flag of America itself, killing America and this world itself. That flag is killing America, and by it, it's killing the rest of the world. America is a synonym of civilization, of ongoing civilizational development. What I want to say in this context is that we cannot tolerate existence of such extremely prime America as topping up the planet, cupping up the planet, using the latest technology to continue to control the planet, and then we expect a reform. A reform will need to happen from outside, because we are talking about changing America, not America changing us. So it will need to come from outside, which means that the America as it is of today will need to be weakened significantly, especially in such approaches that they are using versus random families, to espionage random families, especially characters of my kind, to refer to me as some kind of river or rain or whatever, and use my work completely as their entitlement. That America cannot be accepted anymore as imperial America, because that would not be exactly how we would understand that empire to function. I have explained how I would understand that empire to function, But there is time passing by, and nothing is moving and changing here. In contrary, it's getting exactly the same, if not even worse. America is even openly declaring that they are open ground using my work, recklessly and without any apology. Well, therefore, that is going to be my answer to Americans as well, accordingly. We need to change America before America continue to call itself America. Because as of what it is today, it is complete formula for disaster, not just its own, but of the entire planet. And that is already a very serious event. And most importantly, that America would not have a clue how to improve anything about themselves. They continue to act instinctively. That's the only thing what we can expect from Americans. Instinctive reaction. Well, then ask yourself, is that what we as a planet, after millenniums of development, have deserved? To be kept and topped up by someone that cannot act and react on anything in any other way, but instinctively, with devastations over and over and over again, devastating everything in front of them, and creating the most inhumane country on the planet, and then call it democracy, call it civilization, and call it top of the civilization of the planet. Absurdity here walk on top. Negative here become declared as positive. And we are a step away to be taken away by such foolishness. So I'm going to ask Donald Trump himself to accept some chunk of responsibility for his own country before he continues to steal identities, top up families, blackmail families, and condition families to assist him in his greatness while he has declared no single program. And using international stage to promote national approach while their nation, his nation, does not have even proper flag. That is my message to Donald Trump. To stop dragging everything on his side, because he cannot be a main player today. Because he cannot be the main player today. So let's notice here what else is on the ground in a consequence of the previous. That is that the rest of the territories are returning slowly to play puppets again on international scale in a very dangerous way. I'm going to remind here that today Germany cannot equally consider themselves principal players because Germany today is not a principal player. I have chosen today to play ancient Macedonia. And that is not Germany, it does not translate into Germany. I may provide support to Germany, but that would never translate into Germany taking over my work. Neither that can happen, neither they can play that level of game. So it would be dangerous, therefore, to accept alternative proposals where you would be burning again as in previous times. What is the most correct approach for Germany is to be very subtle in this period of time and allow the movements to happen as where they started, and they become in consequence what they would become in consequence, and that is one of the strongest countries in Europe. But they are today in different textbook, in someone else's ideological concept, and they are not therefore the matrix territory to it. The matrix territory to my ideological work today is ancient Macedonia. That is, I'm going to repeat again, not Germany. And I cannot play that game in Germany, neither Germany can play it itself. In the worst or the best, it's all relative now, in that context, particularly as Germany in question, they would certainly find themselves closer to Americans as they are, and that is for them loser game. It was always loser game, will continue to be loser game. But I wanted to say something else here. It is that it is strengthening the piping politics of piping again, and that is very unhealthy. very unhealthy. It is much better scenario that you recognize your real attachment to ancient territories, rather than set yourself as piping out of them. That would be very dangerous. That would indicate that you are a Muslim platform, and that would not make you soon on the line with Alexander. Therefore, it is. One can bring. I can imagine such kind of political parties, obviously forward in Germany, but it is to be understood that always to be respected, as Americans always have been respecting Israel because he was Judah. To be respected, the actual temple, in this case scenario that is Alexander, the actual temple of Alexander, rather to each time trying to declare it on your own territory. That's critical momentum. In other words, not to become a piper, because that's never going to give you the status on much more permanent levels, and will never be indicator of some kind of promise for more steady development. And that is not what we want for Europe. Europe is one territory. Families have been dispersing all over the place, and there will be plenty of substance going further on the territories. But we have lost proper connection, and we have lost proper formation. The last thing beneficial here it is that they continue to be piper of their own temples. That approach will need to be changed. They will need to somehow straighten the temples, and by the behavior as well. And as where we are right now, I am the one bringing that this active temple level of performance, and I need to bring that level of synchronization accordingly. Now it's very hard here to talk about synchronization where you don't know where we are going to locate the working room, but we are not talking about working room here before we talk about proper synchronization with territories, which means do not use your players on the territories. You have to connect directly with me. You're using indirect players, and they end up playing like on a chess table. You're losing because this is not a chess table. This is straightforward sun protocol. Either you're with sun or you're not with sun. Or you're moon. That is the only option. Either you're sun or you're moon. And at the moment you're playing moon. And that's not good enough, Germany. It's just not good enough. Same for England. England cannot afford to talk to me directly. England is playing a moon. It's not going to be good enough. It's just not good enough. Correct yourself properly. You have to connect to me directly. You have to start talking to me. You have to start asking for me. You have to demand my possession. I am the one that is author to this work, and no one else was given the right to represent it. No one else was given the right to I have not given that right to no one else. Which means you become in position of piping. And that is Moon Protocol already. Same message to any other country. Ladies and gentlemen, you want to play the latest time of the game? Well, you have to recognize who is the principal player of today, or you are a bunch of schmucks. That is all in category Moon Protocol. And look today, čuda neviđenog. Moon became bigger than sun itself. However, I have to notice that in times when I play also Temple Protocol, it would be unfair to people of my kind to submit so much myself to my love for my son and daughter, for my kids, to give it all to them and to simply forget about my own temple. And here it has been reflected in all of the historic terms exactly such attitude of mothers or parents to tend to bring everything to next generation, that they actually end up sacrificing themselves very often or losing themselves from perspective. So here I'm afraid the temple of mother became exactly such synonym. It becomes synonym of sacrifice and synonym of kids. In political terms speaking, that sounds completely differently, taking it all and taking everything. So it will be justifiable sufficiently if we notice that certain territories today want to bring that subject forward, and they want to bring that subject forward for some time, for quite some time. How far we have ended in the planet where kids, although we have been discussing plenty about violation of kids on the father kids levels, father son level, which is more specifically to Jesus bloodline protocol related, which is absolutely nothing to be ignored or to be underestimated. And fathers have been harshly criticized here. I have to notice that mother protocol here become the losers. We obviously managed to save the Jesus, but haven't managed to save the mother as well. I think no one bothers sufficiently about it, because everyone thinks that these are less attractive societies, these are old societies, and that they do not deserve that much attention. First of all, it will need to be noticed that we don't talk only about the old societies, but we talk about the prototype of people. As a result, you have today an entire category of population in Northern Ireland actually suffers because for no any other reason but because of the way how they look. And the way how they look turned to be not fitting enough within the entire kids, parents story, and they end up being the losers, being the sacrificed, ignored, being the one taken away from, and being second graded in any single regard. So I have to point out here that trying to provide best for your kids should not go as that far, and finding you on position of irrelevant or totally non-existing. We cannot accept such definition of families. However, also I have to notice here how far Macedonians have become epitome of some kind of Nazism and have not understood Alexander and neither did that entire imperial saga properly. And I have to notice narrow-mindedness to its core. Such people have not managed to defend their historic heritage today. They have not managed to defend the region and the history of that region. They have become rather outlaws or outlanders, and it is correct, very, very correct to say so, because these people are completely out of touch, either on planetary level, or on the level of what is the concept of institution of life on this planet. Something that exists that much out of touch would even rightfully be called artificial intelligence, because literally they behave as out of touch. That level of political, of cultural disconnect, civilizational disconnect will find you on no any other premise but exactly as artificial intelligence. Because you're out of senses, you're talking nonsense, and you behave as a nonsense. That is my definition of Nazism. And regretfully, Macedonia is completely plugged into such a way of understanding Alexander. They have misunderstood him. They have misunderstood their own kingdom. They have misunderstood their own history. That is where we are, where it is in question. Republic of Macedonia, or so-called North Macedonia, former Republic of Yugoslavia, very much attached to Belgrade dictatorship, and that is Celtic City or Singidunum platform as it was Yugoslavia. The Republic of Macedonia, North Macedonia, continues to be very much crafted under the sentiment of a republic, socialistic Republic of Yugoslavia, and it is catching exactly that aspect of Nazism that made Alexander to be understood equally not as a Buddha, but as some kind of scary event that even India ended up to be afraid of. And India became blind to notice that Alexander cannot be no one else but Buddha, or that Buddha is no one else but Alexander. You have to be blind, India, and the rest of the world, not to notice that. So all you have to do is just to take yourself out from allowing to be brainwashed from the textbooks that have been clearly recently written. Look much more carefully to your symbols, and you will find the real story right there in the symbols. And then you find how it has become translated into by the books of religion and the three religions that completely derived out of Buddhism and transformed the figures of Buddhism into their religious artifacts. So I doubt that the religions are old 2 millenniums, because if Buddhism happened in some kind of 600 year 600 after BC, religions are happening after Buddhism. There is no chance that they happened before Buddhism. They would happen after Buddhism. And as a result, would be using the characters in completely further in the mode of detachment, in further mode of detachment. Religions are using characters in further mode of detachment. There is a probability that clearly Buddhism also built on certain specific ancient historic events. So here we have to therefore notice the actual historic events, and then how religions react on it. How religions reflect on actual historic events. But Alexander would be nothing of narrow-minded, stupid, detached, and disconnected Nazi that end up in some kind of profile of that completely disoriented, numb soldier in Germany. I don't want to offend Germany. I'm going to find rather Europe victim to such politics of further detachment and further developing it into some kind of artificial design. So today the old societies are calling Europe artificial intelligence. I'm not going to attack Europe because of it, but I'm pointing at the critical momentums that would make Europe to end up into a suicidal game each time. And critical momentum here would be today Macedonians and how they understand their nationalism, which is completely a limbo space. Total limbo space. Detached completely from their environment, but then they existed in some kind of ancient identity. And that is absurd. We need to bring that ancient identity much more interconnected with its region and existing within that region. And Nazism here does not play. I'm going to say it accordingly. Here we need to talk first about kingdoms before we talk about princes. Because they would be more about spreading something, like it was equally Jesus. So you can see it's the same momentum here. Jesus equals Alexander exists on the level of spreading the teaching or this kind of mind formulation, mind construct. And they're spreading. Alexander was spreading the kingdom, which is mind construct, mind formulation of the way how to organize society. And Jesus was spreading the actual teaching. In substance, the princes exist at the point of spreading, but you miss the critical point, and that is the protocol itself. The protocol itself is the kingdom itself. And that is always going to be a missing part if you each time start the game from point of Alexander. The story does not start from point of Alexander. The story starts from the point of kingdom and us understanding the kingdom. And we all of a sudden find in the stories of stepmother, real mother, and then all of a sudden the moon protocol of moon civilizations become a real mother to a sun civilization. But moon is not going to be real mother to a sun civilization. That's never going to happen. It's always going to be other way around. It's always going to be moon civilizations reflecting on sun, on principal civilization. It would be principal civilization as mainstream culture as it is today, and then each of the territories reflect on the mainstream culture. You will never be in position to say otherwise around. You will never be in position to say, this is now moon mother is real mother and sun mother is stepmother. That is absurd. That is absurd. If we are in a historic heritage story, and that is where we are today, we are in historic heritage story. Everyone will need to understand that we are talking about actual kingdom here, ancient kingdom, where it is very clearly defined who is mother, who is father, and who is stepmother. Let's focus here on the subject. Therefore, when you speak mother and stepmother, pay attention. You're talking about sun character versus moon character. Of course, speaking in much more absolute terms, where we reach actually the real event that is happening as in earlier times as of real kingdom, that would have been happening here in all of the stories also depicted. And here I notice where metaphysics reach the physics, or metaphysics reach the history, or metaphysics become a reflection of physical world, of which we might probably need to call it metaphysical from now on, is actually reflecting the physical world. And here becomes metaphysical. What we would say other way around, that we are reflecting, or we are using here references to something much more static, and reflect on energies, and real events on the planet. But it easily might be equally understood in different ways, in other way around, which would be too much for a given time. I'm not going to push on that scale. I'm going to focus much more on political and historic aspect. So let's notice that we would be talking in all the times about earlier kingdoms. And here we have to reflect how it is disposition on the territories, that we have the characters and the kingdoms that would have been developing on the actual fabric of its own drivers, as it is Mediterranean, for example, which at given time was enormously strong driver, continue to be enormously strong driver for all of the tradings and any sorts of communication and exchange of living on continental level between East and West. Very strong position, Mediterranean basin. It would deliver in civilizational terms, in kingdom level of terms, Sun protocol. Any sided territory here would end up reflecting on such protocol and would end up in position of Moon protocol. So when you're in a given historic story, as it is, for example, story of Alexander, you have into perspective that context. In that context and in that kingdom, there is clear definition what would be the queen and what would be a stepmother. We talk about context of actual kingdom, that is Mediterranean kingdom. Now if you take context some different kind of kingdoms, then you have your own princesses, and then you might talk about stepmother in different terms. But when you have in question Mediterranean kingdom, which is sun-driven protocol, let's not get confused. Who get a definition of mother on principal account and who get a definition of stepmother in relation to that particular kingdom, as that is the kingdom we're talking about today. That is the kingdom to which I connect, and that is the kingdom on which parameters I deliver my work. And I have said that clearly, loudly, and I have chosen the names that would not bring any doubt to anyone that we talk about that territorial plateau. And no one is going to call me stepmother in my own kingdom, in my own house, in my own work, in my own mental construct. So what that also means that you notice what make difference between sun and moon. And it is nothing as it looks. From sun you'd expect much more sustainability, much more substance, much more real effect. From the moon you get a sun, just the light, the shine, but nothing more than that. You don't get the life out of it. You don't get the real life-related answers. No, you get second-grade answer that is reflecting. And Muslim territories willing to accept and admit to this entire world as of today that in their entire history they have ended up to reflect on someone else. And that someone else would be the forces that have been present on Mediterranean in a given time. And I can see here how far this Mongolian kind of Asiatic territories want to promote themselves, especially after Russia is strengthening their possessions by killing more and more of their own in Ukraine. And as a result, we have Asiatic territories and Asiatic kingdoms rising up, which confirms my theory that Russia lost Russia or Russia in last century. And today has become a vehicle used by Asiatic countries. I'm going to blame the stupid Europe for it as well. And that is where Europe realizes what doomsday represents, playing Alexander at the point of Nazism and forgetting that he is a son of a kingdom. And that you will, and in order to understand Alexander and his game, you need to understand the kingdom. Or you will never be walking his steps. And that is Europe. A continent with lost history. Or should I say a history with missed history that never happened in real terms. Let's understand the kingdom first. And let's do not stab knife in the back of each other. You have been playing out of my mother, Ursulas of Europe, a Jesus bloodline, the sacrificed lamb. Well, it's time to understand. First of all, you would be talking about wolves because the kingdoms get built by wolves, not by lambs. Which means lambs would be yourself. In the consequence of wrong understanding the entire story, you have ended to be lamb to the entire world. So you lambs of ancient Macedonia, you have not been sacrificing the lamb Alexander. You have sacrificing the wolf Alexander, as the lambs is yourself. And of course, he was further than wolf. He would be a lion. Well, lion is not a lamb. You would be lambs. That is why he was the ruler. Because you would be the lambs. And there is nothing more easier in this world than to control and play lambs on the field. And you have been played as lambs. And you have been the one stabbing the knife in the back of your tsars, in all of the history of yours. Because you have been such lambs and such lambs. And it is time to stop being that. Where is Ursulas and the rest? And then you represent Europe. Americans were saying, well, it is good to have teaching while you're having also some fun. Well, I'm going to say bulls usually end up as being on the table of the one of the making of the one having a fun. I'm not sure they are participating in the fun game. This is a duty call. And be careful how you're going to call protocol that certainly yours is not. Also, I have to say something in this closure statement about impression I have taken in the recent time, and that is that the entire Hollywood movie stars and the entire apocalyptic presence of big industries in America is surrounded by some prime artifacts, especially associated from our territories, especially Macedonia, that continue to be on some kind of chica level or uncle level of presence, and very somehow positioned as how I would notice very much with some kind of dirt in the overall relation to the players or the actors or the performers themselves as some kind of god level, but it's not god level, but it's kind of dirty pig or something, and we get to the point of Weinstein or here it is now. I'm promoting the ancient civilizations to the best, and I have Weinsteins all on the field, and it's not just one Weinstein. You have them all across the field. That's the real fabric of that Macedonia. And I'm going to say again, sheep or even bulls, for that matter, will never amount for a lion. And even then, there is only one lion king among all of the lions, and everyone else would not be having what it takes, would not be having the star on their forehead. And without a star of your forehead, you don't get to America either. Regretfully, we get into America and stars are all cornered in one square. Well, with such approach and such game field of playing the kingdom on the face value of Weinsteins, certainly we are going to get that performance, and certainly you're ultimately going to end up in some prison because you have been bringing the stars in a corner. And your king would be one having a star on his forehead. He would be a king star, or you will not be talking of him for 2 millenniums. So I want to explain how critical it is for certain protocols to be very clear about the principal value systems, or they just missed to play their history, as it turned to be the case with these ancient territories that regretfully have not managed to understand their kingdom initially. Also, another momentum I want to point out here, I'm going to find critically important as one of the puzzles that I would be enclosing in the recovery of the puzzle called Planet Earth, would be that each of the nations recognize their own symbols as a matter of their principal population, reference to their principal population, as you don't end up in a loser game as Americans, that for a very long period of time have been thinking that their symbol is eagle. Well, actually, their symbol is bull, or that is buffalo. The symbol of America is buffalo, not eagle. Eagle is symbol of Babylon, of Iran, of mountain territories. It is associated to mountain territories. America is not exactly to be defined as a mountain country. And the population in America, in order to sustain, we talked previously, in order to bring that kind of presence on the territories on some mega scale, you need to bring to some extent mega population. In order to get mega America in America, you need to have mega body, embodiment of the population. And that has been accomplished within bringing reference to a buffalo. Therefore, the symbol of America is buffalo. Let's remember that. And stop celebrating eagle, as eagle is symbol of Babylon. And then you end up in being mistreated as a son by your father, because your father is not American. Your father is Babylonian, and it is time to send him back home from where he came. That's my message to America. And the sons of the fathers will need to recognize the kingdom to which they need to reconnect if they want to continue to play that kingdom, because that kingdom would have its story, and they will need to know that story correctly and to connect to the territories correctly. Because when I reincarnate, I'm not going to get on my knees to some Donald Trump. Not now, not tomorrow, not in the future. And maybe it's time that Donald Trump learn how to get on his knees as well, somewhere in temple, not in Israel, but in Macedonia. Or because that is where his temple is. It is time to notice, therefore, that Masons would be sons to Babylon. And that is why they ended to be so much antipode to entire history of the region and to the entire history of the yellow platform even of Alexander. And he have ended to stab the bull each time, all the way to Spain. And playing for 2 millenniums history of someone else in Europe, and being used as a bastards of the empire against the matrix of that imperial European imperial setting, as a bastards against Europe totally. Here I'm going to notice the size of Asia, the size of the game of Asia versus entire West Wing, including Europe, entire ancient Mediterranean Europe, entire Macedonian kingdom, using therefore Masons as a sons of father. And therefore as sons of Babylon. That is going to explain Trump and his positions, as he is right now, and that is why Serbs ended up to support him, because he is son of father, not son of mother, and that is not who true and real Alexander was. Real Alexander was son of his mother. I have noticed that with an entire good percentage of American population, I have noticed them aligning to great numbers with my husband rather than me, despite the fact that I am the one delivering this work. They continue to disrespect that, and they continue to prefer the role of my father, of my husband, as a second-hand approach, and they continue to associate with second-hand approach and with the approach of exploitation, which might indicate also extraterrestrial events if we do not pay attention. It can be used for sure. This kind of extraction, and in general, this attitude or making economy out of extraction of resources of earth, and then you think of humans, and then you think of previous history and historic play, can very easily end up into extraterrestrial events. It is certainly an approach that we cannot accept. I cannot accept, therefore, that you Americans, Masons, continue to support my husband while knowing perfectly very well that I am the one delivering the work. Now, can you explain to me, please, why on earth you continue to support my husband and not my positions? I would like Masons of America to answer to that question as we speak. They have to be confronted by answering that question. I will, in this closure, always have to say, or reveal, should I say, that my house would be a design studio. Not exactly how one would think. It would be more about the breeding. And I have said a million times, that is where monarchies in substance would be found. And I don't think that there is anything wrong about it if, unfortunately, very often does not end up into playing God more than you should, and ending up being in private lives of other people more than you should. Also, the intentions would be obviously higher, and with the obviously majorly it would be with intention to improve the code of humanity. Now, I'm not going to ask for excuse from positions of where Nazis in Germany found themselves. I think that went a bit too further from in that kind of Neverland concept of finding yourself in certain mind room and just like a little child going away or trying to escape from reality and living in your Neverland platform. Not without a reason. There is considerable amount of movies and books written still to present days that are bringing us always in the way in the world of imaginary, as it was recently written Harry Potter that took number one book sale of all of the times. It is very much present phenomenon, not just associated to past times. Human mind being always complex enough, and sometimes ending up to be labyrinth even to its own holder, to its own subject. And that is where we always need to pay attention. That level of inclination should not be that much rewarded, especially after what happened with Nazism in last century. One should be very careful with flying into parallel mind dimensions, which means moving away from reality or not attending reality. And that's never going to be good enough for any kind of political ideology or conceptual thinking. Meryl Streep in Devil Wears Prada was promoting Harry Potter book sale. Meryl Streep is daughter to father societies, and she cannot project or promote herself as a daughter to mother house, because otherwise she would not be fighting with the co-star. That she could have not even recognized properly. In that context, I will say again, I am mixed breed with Serbia, and I have been always very proud of it. And then to that I attach, my house is house of design, and I am designer. I am artist. I am multi-leveled artist, although you might do not get that impression. But I know my grounds very well. And that is what makes person to be a good flyer. Only when you know as a person where is your ground. Only when you're very solidly grounded. Then you can afford flying as much as you want. What prevails clearly is critical point. In my case scenario, my mother prevails. And that is critical momentum. Where I'm going to talk to Meryl Streep again and ask her to stop promoting first grade platform in Hollywood, and then we talk America. Unless she's ready to sign on Buffalo, stamp first degree, she is second degree. So speaking of kingdoms, that might qualify for a daughter, but if the kingdom not properly detected, she might end up being daughter of the stepmother. As she truly, ambitiously, insists to continue to play the game, she would be a daughter to a stepmother. What I wanted to say with this is that, my house is a house of design, truly. But I do not wear my clothing. I declare protocol human and protocol human civilization, and I celebrate human in any single aspect. So I am not in favor of using second-hand reference where it is about to use first-hand event. However, there is an Australian girl out there that is catching our attention. She's extremely talented. Kate Blanchett. I just wonder whose daughter is she. She is the daughter of the another father or of the uncle. And you know, uncles somehow sometimes get better position, because when your father remarried, you lose your father, but your uncle is still there. That is why uncles sometimes end up as good characters. But fact is that we have this the island playing very hard and being actually matrix of this entire Celtic fiasco of bringing today all the gangs on the stage and dragging monarchy on their side and forgetting what it is. And even they have not forgotten that it is a house of design. They have not brought enough skill to be a designers. I'm going to leave it there. I wanted to say, after all, we still talk about house of design. Yet, in my case scenario, as you can see, it is not at all about the body design before it is to be about everything else. Starting from designing the realm, designing the protocol human, designing the concept of life. It's not designing, but let's say talking about it, or somehow taking it out or pointing it out, highlighting, and by doing so, bringing that kind of, rather as you would say, even as electronic table that we end up calling a realm, that is a matter of our conscious but also subconscious choices we make, and how we understand our instincts, and how we understand what instincts are good instincts and what instincts are not good instincts, as would work as a suicidal mission. Instinct for self-preservation is what always going to bring us discussing the realm and the societies. And any solid design on the level of civilizational function would always begin with this kind of conceptual platform I have been talking about, and then we get at some point to the subjects themselves. But plenty precedes here, and I cannot find that Irish or Ireland would have been up to that task. Despite all of the metaphysical, stronger spiritual presence on the mental level of this kind of actual political, conceptual, constitutional thinking, they do not have strong history on it, and because of that, they cannot be validated today as strong players on that scale of conceptual design of society, social and socio-political design. They cannot be principles. I think at some point they understood that properly. But the forces out there are very strong and very complex, and it takes time, obviously, until you recalibrate on this properly. One human, or I may have 30% of Irish people in agreement with me, or even maybe 70%. I wanted to say, still 30% would be happening on television to occasionally bring certain discussion in certain direction, make certain comments, and bring the entire communication into negative again. It's very hard to depict in a given time what would be the real sentiment of the grounds. From my perspective, what is for me most important is that I clarify these matters on the from this higher hierarchical perspectives, to be define properly the direction of the entire thinking, and everything else will just settle in a consequence. I'm going to assume that is exactly how it will happen. You see here how important it gets to be clarified, the context, how you need to play the game on the ground, and how I become again strongly self-defined, and how that becomes strong message for this entire conflict, Serbia, Macedonia, and where you need to step up and say, step up, literally step up and say, I am the one to certify today. I am today declaring the title. I am today declaring the kingdom. I am today choosing the players. And I am delegating the titles accordingly. And then they become entitled to speak, not before. And you recognize here classic monarchical stamp, classic monarchical order. You see here, you don't try to reach monarchy. monarchy becomes the answer, the most natural answer. Because I'm not going to say ruling the societies, but defining societies would require specifics in any given time. And when it comes to specifics, that is how it works. I know that is important for me because various political parties emerge on our territories, trying to take for themselves positions of intermediaries, so how they are going to deliver to me something, or they are going to give to me something. Well, that is not how I'm going to find the definition of entitled to be. First of all, I don't need someone to give me neither a title, neither to connect me with the rest of the titles. I have already connected with them, and they already connected to me in one way or another. We are living in 21st century, and we clearly directly communicate to each other. That already happened. And I know very well that European monarchies are very, very, very much interested to get in touch with me and my work. For what I do not need any kind of intermediaries. Because we have established that the main reason why the protocol was not functioning is because of that many intermediaries would end up referring to the protocol as their balls, and they would be playing them as gang cartels. Today we don't want to accept the same protocol, the same scenario. I'm going to make very clear, it doesn't matter who you are as a person. What matters is how you position yourself in a given context. You position yourself as intermediary in times when I do not need intermediaries. I'm going to notice rather that you are in between or on my way, and that is all I need to ask you, to step away, being on my way. If it is about that I need to choose who is going to play my security, well, that is natural biological platform. It has monarchy degree, it's family layers. It's never going to be third party, my security. I would never entrust third parties with my safety. That is why I'm pulling out monarchy protocol exactly for such purposes. Because I would never entrust third parties with my safety. And that is where governments do not get a role to understand. Governments will never get a role as intermediaries on some kind of personal level. They can only see themselves as a technical executive powers. That means that they need to be professionals in terms of hands-on approach when directives start being given to governments. That means that they need to be real true governors. And if they are not, then they should not be sitting in government, because that is why and how we see government. On any other level, what play is my bloodlines and my families. And if you are not in the circles, well, then you are not in the circles, and you have to accept that. There are various other aspects in life where people can find themselves ambitious about to accomplish certain professional degree. It doesn't have to be interfering with people's private lives to such an extent that you become obstacle to functioning of the societies and the civilization at some point of time, as you have become. If someone will need to learn from the previous mistakes, that is this category of people that continue to play intermediary and believe that it is their call. I have made very clearly to whom I am making calls specifically and exactly, and to whom I have not made a call. In consequence of present discussion, I will notice that it will be absolutely inappropriate, as it felt inappropriate from very beginning, that I happen to be knocking on door of Westminster Palace. We will be rather talking about event of admission. That is, they will need to be readmitted to the actual kingdom. And the actual kingdom that we talk about is, I claim in this case scenario, European kingdom, and there is only one European kingdom in a given period of time of all of the historic development of such sizability, and that would be Mediterranean kingdoms. That would start with Macedonians, Greco-Macedonian Empire, Macedonian Empire, therefore, ancient Macedonian Empire. I'm focusing on that particularly because I am talking here about Alexander as a centerpiece and Olympia as his mother, which brings us rather to Illyria than to Greece. And I find closer somehow Serbia here before I reach the amphitheater. In any case scenario, we talk about that kingdom. It is, to quite an extent, strongly Mediterranean kingdom. To what I will need to find, therefore, England admitted. Now, there is another territory, there is another theory that I have detected equally, where we recognize Nord Stream, that is a Russian dominion, as a Russian kingdom, as a North kingdom, North Pole associated kingdoms, that at some point of time, because of the Ice Age, started to migrate on warmer South territories. And as a result of what, we would have Magna concept in Macedonia. However, with all of my work, I have been insisting on the matrix, that is on mother, before I get to the sun. And in my 15 years of presentation, I could have not easily reached position of sun, as most of the time I needed to devote to cleaning all of the prejudices and all of the conceptions and notions and belief systems, and all of that was very much the fight or battlefield being at the protocol mother, very much the protocol recovering the kingdom itself, or the house of the kingdom itself, and turn to be that we talk about matrix of the protocol human itself. In all the metaphysical terms, even we found ourselves in even metaphysical platform, all of that summing to kingdom of mother. And as long as in Macedonia we get son, but not mother kingdom, I mean, not kingdom of son, but kingdom of parents, to what Alexander is son. And where Alexander was as Jesus, rather apostle, or rather spreading the teaching. We still talk about matrix. And here it is 15 years, and now I slide it from north to bring themselves on same level of discussion with myself. It didn't happen from Japan, didn't happen from China, didn't happen from Africa, didn't happen from South America even. Just didn't happen. And kingdoms do not emerge at point of didn't happen, but they emerge at point of happened. This is going to be my message to Russia and my message to Northern Territories. I'm willing enough to give you enough glory in reference to my son. All I have today firmly is my own presence, my own writings and my own textbook, and I'm connecting it to my identity, because that is how it goes. And these identities would be associated primarily to territories of Serbia and Macedonia, with strong accent to this mega trajectory I deliver. And I have declared this is still mega house, for sure. But I cannot go to give more credit to North Pole at this stage than what I can. Equally, I cannot end up being in denial to my own identity and my own craft and territories out of which I emerge. In any case scenario, we talk about England today, and the fact that England rather will need to be admitted rather than me to knock on their door. Even if that means that Russia sits there, or China or whoever, they have not proven that they hold matrix today. Accordingly, it's not me knocking on the door. Accordingly, in any case scenario, we talk about admission to this theory, to this conceptual constitutional platform I deliver, which is critically important for our entire planetary integrity, where we actually need to seal our planetary integrity, to stamp it, to declare our protocol human, equally to stamp it, to declare our monarchies, and to declare that we are going to take care of families, and look after families, and look after territories, and where governments become technical government, because they cannot be anything else, because they are first of all house of men, and you don't manage family from position of a man, and not again. We have established that monarchy in substance is house of woman or house of mother, and the males would become sons. So the way how male become carrier of the house is by reference to a matrix, to his matrix house, and then he is son to that matrix house. That is the only way. That is how Alexander happens. That is how Buddha happens. I'm not denying first place to my son. I'm just saying that he is of the house of mother. And when you play my daughter on first scale, it is as you are playing a daughter of a father. I cannot accept that, because she is daughter of her mother as well. I claim my kids, but my son and my daughter would be declared as son and daughter of my house, because I am the one delivering this work, and I am their mother. And then my son is older. In any case scenario, we talk about both kids being present on the field and assisting the work. Because it comes to that. It comes to functioning. On second generation, on third generation, on next generations, it's going to be about functioning. As long as we have clarified how we define the houses and how the houses, the monarchy houses, get stamped, the next generations continue to carry on. There is no need to compete. It is about functioning, either on national or international level.